Okay, so if you're listening to this, maybe you feel like your day-to-day existence is less about, I don't know, living and more about just reacting, bouncing between emails, phone notifications, maybe that little voice of self-doubt that just keeps looping.
You have that feeling of being constantly on edge. It's almost like we accept being stressed or distracted as like the normal state of things in modern life.
Exactly. Like
Mhm.
it's just how it has to be. But the sources we've looked at, they suggest something really different, something actually quite empowering.
They do. It's this radical idea, really, that your mind isn't this runaway train just heading for a crash. It's more like, well, like a garden.
A garden, I like that.
Yeah, and if you understand how it works, the soil, the weeds, the weather, you can actually learn how to tend it. You can figure out where the weeds are coming from and, cultivate the things you actually want to grow.
That framing, it instantly feels different, doesn't it? It moves away from feeling like a victim of your own mind towards having some agency. So the big question we're really diving into today is this. What if you could be more than just that mix of emotions that kind of washes over you every day?
Right. Not emotionless, because that's not the goal. It's probably not even possible.
No, definitely not. More like emotion-wise.
Emotion-wise, I
Yeah.
think that captures it. And that wisdom, that kind of mastery, it really stands on two key ideas, two pillars.
Okay.
First is clarity, like really getting what your brain does automatically, why it flags things as threats, why your attention drifts off, understanding the wiring.
And the second.
The second is choice, spotting those automatic patterns as they happen in real time and then deciding, do I follow that old reflex or do I choose a different path, a path that's actually aligned with what I care about?
That's the anchoring part you mentioned, where focus and values come in.
Exactly. That's where you intentionally step in. So maybe we should quickly map out the five big ideas we'll be exploring from the sources.
Yeah, let's lay the groundwork. So first up, this idea that emotions, thoughts, and attention aren't separate things. They're locked in this constant feedback loop.
Right. One feeds the other.
Yeah.
Second, we need to unpack the biology a bit. You've got the brain's threat detector, the amygdala, which is super fast.
The smoke alarm.
Yeah, the smoke alarm. And then you have the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex or PFC, which needs to consciously step in to provide that, measured response. The firefighter.
Got it. Third, and this one feels very current, is how modern life is basically drowning in design distractions. Things specifically built to grab our attention using those old brain circuits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're designed to exploit our wiring. Fourth, we need to tackle the noise we make ourselves overthinking. That mental chatter that feels productive but is usually just an anxiety loop.
Right, it's not really problem solving, it's just spinning your wheel.
Exactly. And finally, the end game. Inner peace. It's not about living in a world with no problems or storms.
No, that's unrealistic.
It's about developing the skill, the confidence, to captain your own ship through the storm. So let's start digging into that blueprint, maybe beginning with the hidden landscape inside us, the stuff that shapes how we feel moment to moment. Okay, so every time you feel a strong emotion, maybe irritation bubbles up or you feel a sudden wave of sadness, it feels like it comes out of nowhere, right? Spontaneous.
Yeah, totally, like a switch flips.
But when you really look closely, which is what the sources encourage, that feeling always emerges from this deep, complex inner terrain. It's like an invisible architecture built up over time from your history, your habits.
And the sources break this down into four key elements, four cornerstones that come together to create that feeling. If we can spot these, we can understand the feeling better. First one is memory.
This is huge. Our feelings right now are constantly borrowing their intensity, their color from things that happened in the past.
So you might not be reacting to what's actually happening, but to some, ghosts from the past.
Pretty much, yeah. Think about this example, Daniel. He's a successful guy, a graphic designer. But every single Friday, around 3 p.m., this heavy cloud of anxiety and dread would just descend on him.
With no obvious reason, like work was fine.
Work was fine, boss was fair, workload okay, no clear trigger. He just treated it like, oh, it's Friday afternoon, I always feel bad then.
Just got to power through it.
Right. But when they actually mapped his inner world, traced it back, turns out, back in 7th grade, Daniel really struggled with spelling and math. And his school. They had these high-pressure spelling tests every Friday afternoon, public scoring, corrections. Really stressful for him.
Oh, wow. Humiliating, probably.
Totally. And that experience basically burned in a neural pathway. Friday, 3 p.m. equals judgment equals failure. Decades later, no more spelling tests. But that anxious echo, still there. He was charging the present moment with that old feeling.
So the anxiety wasn't about his current design project, it was about the ghost of his 7th grade teacher almost.
In a way, yes. And that leads right into the second cornerstone, belief. These aren't just opinions. They're deep, gut-level convictions about yourself, about the world, that act like filters on everything you experience.
And these beliefs are really stubborn, aren't they? Hard to shake even when you know they're maybe not accurate?
Incredibly stubborn. The brain likes shortcuts. It prefers mental models. It already saves energy. Take Leah's story. She had a difficult childhood, lots of instability, and she developed this core belief. People can't be trusted. They will always leave me.
Okay, so that's her filter.
That's her filter. So even as an adult trying consciously to build secure relationships, her nervous system was constantly on high alert for any sign of abandonment.
How did that play out, like day to day?
Well, say her partner texted back a few hours late or was a bit slow making plans for the weekend. Minor stuff, right?
Yeah, could be anything. Busy day.
But her belief system didn't see it that way. It immediately filtered that small delay as proof that the partner was pulling away, that abandonment was imminent. Her body didn't react with slight annoyance. It reacted with full-on panic. The whole physical fear response kicked in.
Wow. Because the belief amplified the experience into an existential threat.
Exactly, which shows how subjective experience is. That's the third element. Experience itself, the real-time sensations, the context. Two people can have the exact same external experience.
Like riding a roller coaster.
Perfect example. Same G-forces, same sounds, but one person screams with joy, the other screams in terror. Why? Because their internal filters, memories, beliefs, interpret those sensations completely differently.
Okay, so memory, belief, experience. What's the fourth piece?
The fourth is thought. This is the nonstop narrator in your head, the voice that's constantly weaving together your memories, beliefs, and current experiences into a story.
And this story is what really fuels the emotion.
It's often the direct trigger, yeah. You don't even need an external event. Just thinking a certain thought can bring on dread or anger or joy.
Like worrying about a meeting before it even happens.
Precisely. There was Javier, an executive. Before big meetings, his internal monologue was always, "Everyone else here is smarter, I've got nothing useful to say." That thought alone triggered the physical stress response. Sweaty palms, racing heart, mind going blank.
Even though nothing bad had actually happened yet.
Correct. But when he consciously worked on changing that thought, shifting the narrative to something like, "I bring a unique perspective they need," his body calmed down. His performance improved. The thought literally rechanneled the emotional energy.
So if emotions are messengers, anger pointing to a boundary, sadness maybe highlighting a belief, we need to understand how the brain's control room actually handles these messages. Let's get into the neuroscience bit, the reaction machinery.
Right. So basically there are two main paths, two highways, for processing information coming in from our senses. Think of it as the fast lane and the scenic route.
Okay. The fast lane is the limbic system one, driven by the amygdala.
Exactly. Tiny structure, but incredibly powerful. It's all about immediate survival. Act now, think later.
The classic saber-toothed cat example, right? You see the teeth, you don't stop to analyze its fur pattern.
Precisely. No time for a committee meeting in the thinking brain. That fast track had to fire instantly for our ancestors to survive. And it still fires today, just maybe not for tigers. It fires for perceived social threats, an angry face, a critical email, that sudden awkward silence in a meeting.
So the amygdala is like the brain's smoke alarm, quick, simple, sees things in black and white, threat or no threat.
Yeah, very binary.
Yeah.
And focus on perceived threat, which might not always be real.
Okay, but if it fires that fast, that automatically, how can we ever actually override it? Isn't the pause, like, too late?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer is about timing and, crucially, about strengthening the other pathway.
Yeah.
Yes, the amygdala fires first. It sends out that initial chemical alarm. But the other route, the slower, scenic route, is the cortical pathway. This one involves the prefrontal cortex, the PFC. If the amygdala is the smoke alarm, the PFC is like the experienced firefighter.
Right, the one who actually checks if there's a real fire or just burnt toast.
Exactly. It assesses the situation, weighs the evidence, handles impulse control, planning, rational thinking. It can basically tell the amygdala, okay, stand down, false alarm.
So the goal isn't to stop the amygdala from firing. You can't. It's too fast. The goal is to get the firefighter, the PFC, onto the scene fast enough to override the smoke alarm's panic signal.
You've got it. That's the essence of it. But here's the catch. The firefighter needs time and energy and chronic stress. It steals both.
How does that work? When you're stressed, the PFC just shuts down.
It doesn't shut down completely, but it gets overruled. When you're stressed, your body floods with adrenaline and cortisol. Those stress hormones basically tell the brain, survival first. They prioritize the amygdala's fast reaction pathway and kind of sideline the PFC's thoughtful analysis.
Ah, so that's why you sometimes do things in the heat of the moment and think later, why did I do that? I knew better.
Exactly that. Your knowing better part, the PFC, was technically there, but it was temporarily offline, drowned out by the stress chemicals.
And this gets worse over time, right? The cost of chronic stress.
Well, absolutely. It's a downward spiral.
Hmm.
If you're living with constantly high levels of cortisol, that stress hormone actually starts to physically change your brain. It makes the amygdala more sensitive, more trigger happy.
Like turning up the sensitivity on the smoke alarm.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And even worse, chronic stress actually weakens the physical connections to and within the PFC. You are literally, structurally, damaging your brain's ability to regulate impulses and think clearly by staying stressed all the time.
That sounds pretty bleak.
It can feel that way. Stress makes you react more impulsively, and reacting impulsively often creates more stress. A vicious cycle.
But there's hope, right? You mentioned neuroplasticity. The brain can change.
Yes, absolutely. This is the crucial counterpoint. We're not stuck with the brains we have right now. Donald Hebb's famous saying, neurons that fire together wire together, is key here.
Meaning?
Meaning, every single time you manage to pause, take that breath, and consciously choose a PFC-led response instead of just reacting automatically from the amygdala, you are physically strengthening that calmer, more rational pathway.
You're basically building a stronger connection to the firefighter.
Exactly. You're reinforcing that circuit. And studies show this isn't just theory. Brain imaging confirms that even just, say, 8 weeks of consistent mindfulness practice or similar techniques can create measurable structural changes in the PSC. You can literally train your brain to be less reactive and more thoughtful.
So you can rebuild the wiring. That's incredibly hopeful.
It really is. It puts the power back in your hands.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got the basic wiring, the 2 pathways. Now we need to talk about all the noise, internal and external, that messes with these signals. Why do we so often mistake a feeling for, like, the absolute truth?
Right. How does that distortion happen?
Well, partly it's built in. The brain loves to fill in the blanks, and it often does so with bias before our conscious mind even gets a look in. We talked about the evolutionary negativity bias. We're wired to notice and remember the bad stuff more than the good.
A survival strategy again. Pay attention to the rustling in the bushes, not the pretty flower.
Exactly. Which is why a really critical skill here is learning to detangle fact from feeling. The sources use this great example. Let's call it the email incident. Remember Maria, the project manager? Competent, but tended towards anxiety.
Okay, yeah.
She gets this really short, kind of blunt email from her CEO. Just says, we need to discuss your timeline. Meet at 2. That's it.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds ominous. No context, short tone.
Right. Instantly, her amygdala lights up, threat detected, stomach flips, heart races. And her thought process doesn't go to, maybe the CEO's just busy. No. It immediately jumps to a full-blown disaster narrative.
Like, I've messed up, I'm getting fired.
Totally. I missed something, I'm not good enough, this is it, I'm going to be demoted, maybe laid off. She spends the next 3 hours basically freaking out, mentally rewriting her resume, planning her defense. The feeling, the dread, the adrenaline was absolutely real. Her body was feeling it.
But the story she told herself about the email.
Pure fiction. She walks into the CEO's office at 2, totally braced for the worst. And the CEO is beaming. Turns out the client absolutely loved her initial work, and they want to speed up the timeline and give her more resources to do it.
Wow. So the CDO was brief because he was probably just rushed.
Exactly. Rushing between meetings, not because he was angry, but Maria's internal filter immediately interpreted ambiguity as disaster.
So the emotion was real, but the interpretation was totally wrong. How do we stop making that leap? How do we insert a pause there?
It comes down to practicing the art of inquiry. It's about training yourself, in that moment when the feeling surges, to question the automatic story. Instead of just accepting this means disaster, you pause and ask, okay, what else could this mean? Is there another possible explanation for why they sent that short email? Is this feeling familiar? Is it an old pattern?
Just asking the question brings the PFC online a bit.
Exactly. It interrupts the automatic narrative and introduces rational thought. But even if we get good at managing internal bias, we're living in, well, distraction nation.
Tell me about it.
Our attention is literally being bought and sold. Technology, media, So much of it is engineered specifically to hijack our brain's wiring.
How does that work on a brain level?
It taps right into the dopamine system. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure. It's hugely about anticipation and novelty. That little ping from your phone, the endless scroll on social media where you might see something interesting next. It's like a slot machine for your brain.
Variable rewards. Keeps you hooked.
Precisely. It exploits that ancient scanning the horizon for something new instinct. So our brains are kind of stuck in this low-level, constant state of alert, waiting for the next little dopamine hit.
And you've got the obvious external hijacks, the phone buzzing, the emails popping up, the open office noise.
Right. But then there are also the internal hijacks, which can be just as disruptive. Those random thoughts that pop into your head, replaying conversations, worrying about the future, that internal chatter.
And all this switching back and forth. That brings us to the myth of multitasking, doesn't it?
Oh, big time. We think we're multitasking, but we're not. We're task switching. And every single time you switch, glance at that email, check that notification, then try to get back to your report, there's a cost.
A switching cost. It takes time and energy to get back into what you were doing.
A lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
It's not just the second you lost looking at the phone. It's the mental effort required to disengage, re-engage, remember where you were, get back into the flow.
What does the research say? How long does it actually take?
It varies, but some key studies suggest it takes, on average, something like 23 minutes to regain deep focus after even a brief interruption.
23 minutes, that's huge. If you're checking your phone every 10 minutes.
You're basically never achieving deep focus. You're spending your entire day in this state of cognitive transition, which is incredibly inefficient and exhausting.
And then there's the noise we generate entirely ourselves.
Oh,
Overthinking and mental clutter. Why do our brains get stuck in those loops? Why do we ruminate?
it's tricky because rumination often feels like you're doing something productive. It feels like problem solving. The brain kind of equates repetition with importance. If I keep thinking about this problem, maybe I'll figure it out.
Usually you don't. You just get more anxious or stressed.
Exactly. It's like running on a hamster wheel. Lots of effort, no forward motion. Just burns up your mental energy.
And what about that thing where unfinished tasks just keep popping into your head? The Zeigarnik pull.
Yeah, the Zeigarnik effect. It's your brain's way of trying to keep track of incomplete things. Like having too many browser tabs open uses up your mental RAM. That email you need to send, that call you need to make, they just hang there, nagging you.
Because the brain doesn't want you to forget them.
Right. It's trying to be helpful in a way. But the solution highlighted in the sources is really simple and elegant. The Open Loops Notebook.
How's that different from just a regular to-do list?
It's about the act of acknowledging the loop and externalizing it. When that nagging thought pops up, got to call the accountant, you don't just try to push it away. You grab your dedicated notebook and write down just enough to capture it. Call accountant re-taxes.
And that tells the brain it's safe to let go.
Pretty much. It's like telling your brain, okay, I've logged this. It's captured externally. You don't need to keep holding onto it in active memory anymore. It frees up that mental bandwidth.
Okay, that makes sense. We need some quick tools, though. In the moment, when the mental clutter or the overthinking starts spinning up, what can we do?
2 really effective, immediate tools. First is sensory anchoring.
Meaning?
When your mind is lost in abstract worries, what if this happens? I should have said that. You deliberately shift your full attention to something concrete and sensory right now.
Like what?
Feel the coolness of the glass in your hand. Really notice the texture of your chair. Listen intently to the sound of the air conditioning. Focus on the physical sensation of your feet on the floor. It pulls you out of the abstract thought loop and into the physical present. Instantly interrupts the pattern.
Okay, anchoring in the senses. What's the second one?
The 3-breath protocol. Super portal, really quick.
How does it work?
3 simple steps, takes maybe a minute. Step 1, acknowledge what's happening. Just name it, silently or out loud. There's that worry loop again, or, okay, feeling overwhelmed. Naming it creates a little distance.
Step 2.
Step 2, allow the feeling or thought to just be there for a moment. Don't fight it, don't try to shove it away, just breathe with it. Let the physical sensation exist without adding judgment.
And step 3.
Step 3, ask yourself a simple, powerful question. Is there something I need to do about this right now, or can it wait? Usually, especially with worry loops, the answer is it can wait. And just acknowledging that often deflates the urgency of the thought spiral. You've taken back control by pausing and choosing. So we've looked at the inner landscape, the biology, the distractions. Now let's move into the action part. How do we actually build mastery? And it all starts with the single most powerful intervention, the wisdom of pausing.
That tiny gap, right, the space between the trigger and our automatic reaction. The sources say it's not just a nice idea, it's physically necessary.
It is. Remember the firefighter and the smoke alarm? The PFC, the thinking brain, needs time to catch up to the amygdala's instant reaction. How much time? Research suggests somewhere around 6 to 10 seconds.
6 to 10 seconds. Okay, that's longer than you'd think, but short enough to be practical.
Exactly. So pausing isn't just stopping, it's an active skill. You're consciously creating that necessary window for your rational brain to come online and offer a choice other than the knee-jerk reaction.
How do we hold that space for 6-10 seconds? We need something tangible to focus on, right? An anchor.
Absolutely. The anchors need to be simple, reliable, and available anywhere. Controlled breathing is the classic best anchor because, well, you're always breathing.
True.
But you can also use physical sensation. Really focus on the feeling of your feet flat on the floor. Grip your chair firmly. Touch a specific object, like your coffee mug, or even a smooth stone in your pocket, and focus on its texture or temperature. These ground you in the present and buy those crucial seconds.
There's that story about Marcus, the teacher, isn't there? He used an anchor to deal with sarcasm.
Yeah, great example. Marcus was a high school teacher, generally good, but he had this reflexive habit of using cutting sarcasm when students were disruptive. He knew it wasn't helpful, it damaged relationships, but it just came out.
His automatic reaction to feeling disrespected.
Exactly. So his trigger was that feeling of disrespect. His old response was the sarcastic quip. To break the pattern, he created a specific anchor. Whenever he felt that sarcastic urge rising, he trained himself to plant his hand flat on his desk and take 2 slow, deep breaths.
So that action, palm on the desk plus breath, created his 6 to 10 second pause.
Precisely. And in that pause, he could access his actual values, like wanting to be a respectful and patient teacher. And instead of the sarcasm, he could choose to ask a calm question or set a clear boundary. It reportedly transformed the classroom atmosphere, all from creating that tiny buffer.
Okay, so the pause gives us control back, but then what do we do with that control? We need to aim our focus somewhere meaningful. That brings us to aligning choices with values.
Right. The pause creates the opportunity, but values provide the direction. Values are like your internal compass, those core principles like honesty, courage, connection, learning, whatever they are for you, that guide you, even when emotions are stormy and things feel confusing.
But how do you figure out what your true core values are? It's not always obvious. Sometimes we adopt values from culture or family that aren't really ours.
That's a really important point. We need ways to excavate them. One method the sources suggest is a reflection exercise. Imagine you're 90 years old, looking back on your life. What qualities would you want to have defined your actions? Not your achievements, but how you lived. Was it with kindness, integrity, curiosity? That often reveals what truly matters deep down.
Looking back from the end?
Yeah.
Okay, what's another way?
Another powerful way is to look for dissonance. Think about times you felt really uncomfortable, maybe even ashamed or physically ill, because your actions didn't line up with something you believe in.
Like laughing at a mean joke even though you felt bad about it.
Exactly. That feeling of discomfort, that dissonance, is a signpost pointing directly to a violated value in that case, maybe the value of kindness or respect.
Yeah.
Painful moments can be really informative about what we hold sacred.
So once you've clarified these values, say respect is a core value for you, how does that help in the heat of the moment?
It acts like a shield and a guide. Let's say someone interrupts you rudely. Your amygdala might scream, "Attack back." Anger flares up. But if respect is a conscious, chosen value, that value can channel the anger. Instead of lashing out, the reactive path, the value guides you towards a response like, "Hold on, I need to finish my point, then I'm happy to listen to yours."
So the emotion isn't suppressed, it's directed by the value into a more constructive action.
Precisely. The energy is used differently. Now, alongside managing the mental and emotional side, we have to address the physical toll. That's stress mastery.
Right, managing the body's response.
It's about thinking of your stress capacity like a bucket. There are things that fill the bucket: stress accumulators, deadlines, conflicts, worries, and things that drain it. Stress depleters, exercise, rest, connection, hobbies. Mastery is about consciously balancing the inflow and outflow.
Like Miguel, the founder in the source material. He was all faucet, no drain.
Totally.
Right.
Super-driven tech founder, working insane hours, believing he couldn't afford any downtime. Predictably, he burned out completely, physically and mentally.
Because he wasn't draining the bucket at all.
Not at all. He had to learn that resilience isn't about being tougher. It's about active recovery. He had to consciously rebuild those drainage holes, bringing back his morning runs, scheduling actual time off, delegating tasks that exhausted him. The external pressures didn't disappear, but he rebuilt his capacity to handle them by managing his own energy system.
And for immediate, in-the-moment physical resets, the breath is key again, particularly the power of the exhale. Why is that 4-in, 6-out, or similar, breathing so effective biologically?
This gets into the fascinating territory of the vagus nerve. This is a huge nerve, the main nerve of your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest system. It runs from your brainstem down to most of your major organs, constantly sending signals back and forth about the state of your body.
Okay, so it's like the communication highway for calm.
Kind of, yeah. And a strong, well-functioning vagus nerve, what they call good vagal tone, is linked to better emotional regulation and resilience. And one of the most direct ways to stimulate the vagus nerve and signal safety to your brain is through your breath, specifically by making the exhale longer than the inhale.
Why the longer exhale?
Because breathing in naturally speeds the heart rate up slightly, and breathing out slows it down. When you deliberately extend the exhale, say breathing in for 4 counts and out for 6 or 7, you're basically telling your vagus nerve, everything is okay, we are safe, time to calm down. It physically activates the parasympathetic system, counteracting the stealth hormones. It's a direct physiological switch.
A portable antidote to stress. Along with breathing, what about just taking breaks? Micro breaks and digital hygiene, are they really that important?
Absolutely essential, not optional extras. Think of them as cognitive maintenance. Taking short breaks every, say, 45 to 60 minutes, just standing up, looking out the window, stretching, getting water, prevents that cognitive fatigue from building up to critical levels.
And the digital side, the constant notifications.
The cost is higher than we think. That UC Irvine study you mentioned earlier is startling. It found that office workers constantly interrupted by emails showed physiological stress levels similar to combat pilots during training simulations.
Oh, wow. Just from email.
Yeah. So practicing good digital hygiene, turning off non-essential notifications, setting specific times to check email instead of letting it constantly interrupt you, isn't about being lazy or avoidant. It's a necessary strategy for protecting your focus and your nervous system.
Okay, so we pause, align with values, manage stress physically. But there's one more crucial element, right? The foundation for all of this.
Yes. The soil where resilience really grows. The power of self-compassion. And this is often misunderstood. People think it means letting yourself off the hook, being complacent.
Right, like it's weak.
But the science shows the opposite. Self-criticism actually activates the threat system. It floods you with stress hormones, keeping you defensive and stuck. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is linked to releasing hormones like oxytocin, the tend and befriend hormone, which actually reduces cortisol and creates a sense of safety.
So being kind to yourself actually makes you stronger and more capable of change.
Exactly. You can't berate yourself into sustainable positive change. Kindness creates the psychological safety needed to face difficulties, learn from mistakes, and keep going.
The sources break self-compassion down into 3 parts.
Yeah, 3 core components. First is mindfulness. Simply noticing when you're suffering or struggling without getting swept away by the drama or judging yourself for it. Just acknowledging the pain is present.
Okay. Second.
Second is common humanity. Recognizing that messing up, feeling inadequate, experiencing pain, it's not just you, it's part of the shared human condition.
Yeah.
Everyone struggles. You're not alone in your imperfection.
That takes the sting out of feeling uniquely flawed.
It really does. And the third component is kindness. Actively responding to your own suffering with warmth, care, and understanding, just like you would naturally respond to a friend who is going through the same thing.
Which leads to that practical tool, the inner friend dialogue. Can you give an example of how that sounds? Like, what does the typical inner critic say versus the inner friend?
Sure. So let's say you made a mistake at work. The inner critic might immediately jump in with, "You idiot. How could you mess that up again? You're useless. You'll never get this right." Harsh, global, attacking your identity.
Yeah, sounds familiar for many people.
The inner friend voice, using those 3 components, would sound very different. You might literally put a hand on your heart, acknowledge the feeling, mindfulness, and say something like, "Wow, that was really tough and you're feeling pretty bad about it right now. That's okay. Making mistakes is human. Common humanity. Everyone does it. What can you learn from this and what do you need right now to feel supported?" Kindness.
It's a totally different tone. Calmer, supportive, focused on learning and moving forward instead of just attacking.
Exactly. And that shift in internal dialogue has profound effects on your nervous system and your ability to actually handle the situation constructively. Okay, we've got all these powerful pieces: the pause, values, stress management, self-compassion. Now, the final stage is weaving them together moving from just using techniques to actually living this way. First step, tackling those really ingrained negative patterns, rewiring negative patterns.
These are the deep ruts, right? The automatic reactions that just keep happening. The sources describe them as a kind of three-act play.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Act one is the trigger. Could be anything, a certain person's tone of voice, feeling overwhelmed, making a mistake.
Okay.
Act two is the crucial, often invisible part, the lightning-fast interpretation. This is the automatic story your brain tells itself about the trigger. They think I'm stupid, or this always happens to me, or I need to control this.
And this happens so fast you barely notice it.
Exactly. Which leads directly to Act three, the automatic response.
Yeah.
Lashing out, shutting down, getting anxious, procrastinating, whatever your go-to pattern is. The key to changing the pattern is catching and rewriting that invisible Act two.
How do you do that? There's a method described, right? The three-stage rewire method.
Yes. Stage one is identification.
Yeah.
You have to become a detective of your own patterns.
Yeah.
Trace it back. What was the trigger? What was my automatic response? And crucially, what was the story or belief driving that response in Act two? Maybe it's a core belief like, I'm not good enough, or I have to be perfect.
So awareness first, then what?
Stage two is interruption. This is where all those tools we talked about come in. The moment you notice the trigger happening or that old story starting to spin up, Act two, you deploy your anchor. You pause. You breathe. You use sensory grounding. You create that vital space.
You stop the play before Act 3 happens automatically.
Precisely. And then stage three is installation. This is where you consciously choose and practice a new response, one that's aligned with your chosen values, not driven by the old fear or belief.
Like David, the manager who tended to micromanage.
Perfect example. David's trigger, Act one, was often uncertainty or a tight deadline. His automatic interpretation, Act two, was something like, my team can't handle this without me controlling every detail. His automatic response, Act three, was to jump in and give very specific, often abrupt directives. Micromanaging.
Okay, so how did he use the rewire method?
He identified the pattern. Then, when the trigger uncertainty hit, he practiced the interruption, pausing, maybe taking a breath. And for installation, stage three, he consciously chose a new response based on his value of empowerment. Instead of giving an order, he practiced asking a coaching question like, okay, team, given these constraints, what are your ideas for the best path forward?
So he installed a question instead of a command.
Right. And every time he successfully did that, he wasn't just managing his behavior. He was literally strengthening a new neural pathway in his brain, the empowerment pathway, instead of the control pathway. And over time, that new response became more natural, less effortful.
That makes sense. Practice builds the new habit. To make these changes stick, we need to embed them into our daily lives, right? Through daily rituals for inner peace.
Absolutely. Rituals are powerful because they create structure and predictability. They automate positive behaviors, making them less dependent on willpower, which is always limited. They build neural efficiency.
Like the example of the ER nurses, they added something to an existing routine.
Yeah, they piggybacked onto their mandatory 20-second hand washing. During that time, they consciously practiced taking 2 deep breaths and bringing to mind one thing they were grateful for. A tiny micro-ritual, but done repeatedly throughout a stressful shift. It provided cumulative moments of reset and perspective, reportedly reducing burnout.
So starting the day right seems crucial. The morning ritual.
Definitely. It's about claiming that first bit of the day for yourself, setting your internal compass before the external world starts making demands. It doesn't have to be long. Lee's example was simple, just sitting on the edge of her bed, breathing slowly, feeling her hands rise together as she inhaled and fall as she exhaled. A brief, embodied check-in to start the day centered.
And ending the day intentionally is just as important as the evening wind down.
Critical for sleep and overall nervous system regulation. You need to consciously shift gears down. The candle ritual mentioned in the sources is one idea. Lighting a candle, mentally acknowledging any unresolved tasks or worries, maybe visualizing letting them go or placing them aside until morning, then extinguishing the candle as a symbol of closure for the day.
It creates a boundary between the active day and rest.
Exactly. It signals to your brain and body that it's time to switch off the problem-solving mode.
So all these practices, awareness, using values, finding stillness, they come together as the 3 pillars of integration.
That's right. Awareness, knowing what's happening inside, intentionality, choosing based on values, and stillness, cultivating that quiet, observant presence underneath all the activity.
And this leads to managing the different voices inside us, the 3 voices.
Yes, this is really the heart of integration. You can think of having 3 main inner voices or centers of intelligence. There's the heart, the seat of your raw emotions, feelings, gut instincts. It speaks in sensations and urges.
Okay. The feeling center.
Then there's the head, the
Oh,
center of logic, analysis, planning, storytelling. It speaks in thoughts, narratives, explanations.
the thinking center.
And finally, there are the guides. This represents your deeper wisdom, your intuition, your core values, that sense of your highest self. It often speaks quietly, with clarity, sometimes feels like a knowing rather than a loud thought.
The wisdom center. So integration isn't about silencing any of them.
Not at all. It's about getting all three voices to the table, listening respectfully to each one, but not letting any single voice hijack the whole system.
How would that play out in a difficult situation, like a conflict with a partner?
Okay, so maybe your partner says something that triggers you. Your heart might immediately flare up. I'm hurt. I feel attacked. Retreat. Your head might instantly start spinning a story. See? They always criticize me. This relationship isn't working.
The usual reaction might be to act purely from the hurt heart or the angry story head.
Exactly. You might lash out or shut down completely. But integrated action involves bringing in the guides. The guides, drawing on your value of connection or respect, might whisper, okay, acknowledge the hurt, but remember the bigger picture. How can we address this constructively with honesty and care?
So you allow the heart's feelings, use the head to maybe structure what you want to say, but let the guides determine the intention and tone of the interaction.
Beautifully put. That's integration in action. And the way to keep this alive, to make it a continuous practice, is by cultivating the stance of inquiry.
Constantly asking.
Gently, curiously asking yourself throughout the day, okay, what's happening right now? What's the heart feeling? What story is the head telling? What are the guides suggesting?
So it's not about achieving some perfect state, but about staying curious about your inner process.
Exactly. It prevents you from falling back into old automatic patterns or thinking you've arrived. It keeps the learning alive, keeps you engaged with reality as it is, moment by moment. It turns life itself into the practice ground.
Wow. So reflecting on all of this, the biggest takeaway for me is that peace. It isn't really about finding a life without storms. That's probably impossible.
Right, it's about building the skill, the inner capacity to navigate whatever storms arise. You've got the tools now. The breath is your anchor, your values is your compass, and understanding neuroplasticity is your map showing you can actually change the routes.
The whole point seems to be shifting from living in a state of constant frenzy to operating more from your core essence.
Exactly. And mastery isn't some final graduation point. It's not like you finish a course and you're mastered. It's a daily recommitment, a choice, moment by moment, to notice what's happening, to pause, to breathe, and to steer intentionally.
And that quiet confidence you mentioned, it's not arrogance. It sounds more like the feeling that comes from knowing you're the one at the helm. You're not just being tossed around by every wave of emotion or circumstance.
That's it precisely. You're the captain, navigating based on your chosen destination, your values, even when the seas get rough.
So we've kind of convened this inner council meeting, haven't we? The heart, the head, the guides, they're all present now, ideally. We wanted to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to maybe chew on as you go back into your day.
Yeah, just something to consider. Now that you have this framework, this idea of your inner counsel being available, what's one significant decision you're facing, or maybe a persistent challenge you keep bumping up against in your life? Could you revisit that specific thing this week?
And approach it differently this time.
Exactly. Approach it by consciously checking in with all three voices, acknowledge the heart's feelings, listen to the head's analysis, but then, crucially, make the next move guided by the quiet wisdom of your guides, acting from one single, clearly identified value, and speaking to yourself with that self-compassion we talked about. Just see what happens when you approach that one challenge from this integrated place.
To get more details about Beyond Emotions, mastering thought, focus, and inner peace, click the below link to get the book. Subscribe us to get more content like this.